Hey guys, this is going to be my simple guide on how to get clients as an agency owner. Now, just for the record, this goes for any agency. If you're running an AI automation agency, creative agency, SMMA, this is the basic framework that I use. Just for reference, I do a creative marketing agency, so we usually provide product videos, product renderings, and marketing materials for supplement and physical product companies. I'm not going to make this video too long. It's basically just a agency 101 from someone who has had decent success with getting clients. Now, I'm going to use a very simple framework here. It doesn't really matter what method of outreach you choose. It can be cold emails, cold calls, cold LinkedIn messages. It doesn't matter. If you have a decent website which communicates your problem solving skills well, so let's say you sell marketing and you have a good website that sells the vision and kind of educates the potential buyers on how your service helps them solve a problem, then you're already halfway there. If you have a bad website or like a bad profile, you should probably fix that because it's going to be much less effective. But in general, let's say you select cold calling and cold emailing as a marketing strategy. So let me write that down. So you have email plus calling. Now, what I have found is the more you niche down, the more likely they are to respond positively to a cold call. So for example, if you have a marketing agency and you just hit up random people, you're probably not going to close very many people. But let's say you have an entire website dedicated to product visualization. Well, all of a sudden, if you start calling local businesses or even low to mid businesses regarding budget, all of a sudden their response rate is much higher because they're not responding to spam mails or spam calls, they're responding to relevant offers. So let's say you have a marketing agency like I do. You're like, hey, I've seen your website, I've seen your products, they look pretty good, but I feel like we can improve your conversion rate if we explain your product better, which we can do via animation, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You sell a service, your service has some benefits, it solves a problem. And let's say you message 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say you message 20 people. Now, what I've calculated is if your offer is relevant, you should have about a 10% relevancy rate. When I say 10% relevancy, I'm not saying you're going to close 10% of your clients. What I'm saying is if you message 20 relevant people, you're probably going to get 2 very relevant replies. When I mean relevant, I mean messaging people in your niche, giving them a relevant offer that actually can help them solve something, and messaging them in a non-spammy and personalized way. So when you refer to helping them with a problem, you refer to their specific product on their website. So that's going to increase your conversion rate. So let's say you do email plus calling like I do. Usually my framework is I call them up and I'm like, hey, my name is this and this. I solve this issue for brands like these and these because I already have some referrals. I know that I can help you with XY issue. Do you feel like this is something that you're looking for? And usually they're interested, sometimes not. Either way, I usually follow up with an email. I'm like, hey, thank you for the nice call. It was awesome meeting you. Let me send you some examples of our work to make sure that this is something that's relevant to you, and we can see if we can help out. Now, what I just did there is I found a relevant business with something that I can actually help with, and I called them. And when I called them, all of a sudden I became sort of an authority. I'm not a spam email anymore. I'm someone they spoke to on the phone. So you can also put that in the email subject. You could be like reply, call or whatever, so that they know that email is relevant and it's not just some spam email from random people. So all of a sudden you've called them so they know you exist. You've mentioned that you can help them, and now they're expecting your email, because at the end of the call you should say, by the way, let me shoot you an email where I can show you some examples and let's see if we can make this work. All of a sudden you're messaging let's say 20 people, and you're not messaging 20 random people, you're messaging 20 random people that you called prior, and then you're emailing them now. So out of these 20 people, realistically what I've seen is that just 10 of them, that means like 50%, are just not interested. That's usually because it's just simply out of their budget, or they're not interested, they already have a team. Obviously you can overcome these objections if you're a good salesperson, but in general the type of client who tries to avoid your service is also the type of client who you don't really want to have as an agency. So let's say hypothetically out of 20 people, you just don't close 20 at all whatsoever because they're just not interested. you're left with 10 people who, let's say, do respond or are somewhat interested. But out of these people, maybe 3 of them stop replying, and then 2 of them are interested, but it's taking too long and it doesn't really head anywhere. So realistically, you end up with like 5 potential people who somewhat are engaging with your emails, and they're also somewhat responsive and interested in your deal. Now, out of the 3 of them, out of the 5 of them, 3 of them probably are not going to want to because they spoke to the manager and he doesn't like your product, or he does like your product but he doesn't see the value, blah blah blah. So let's say realistically, out of the 20, you have 2 people. In most cases, 2 people is going to be a situation where one of them is very keen on your product and he actually loves it and he wants to buy it straight away. In the other case, it's going to be someone who is interested, but he doesn't really understand the value yet, but he wants to understand it because he sees potential. So usually what you can do is you can focus on the one that's interested in buying. You can get on a call with him, explain further what you can do in particular, and then sell him the service. And let's say you sell him for $1,000 because he's particularly keen on your service. Now, with the second client, you might need to do like 2 calls to explain, and then maybe he has to think about it. You have to overcome a few objections like, oh, it's too expensive, or oh, I have to speak to my wife, whatever. But eventually you do get on to one call, which leads to another call, and then you sell him for $350. Now, you made $1,350 just from 20 calls and emails, which realistically you can do in a day. A pro tip is try to find as much information as you can on the people you're messaging. So for example, if you find a company and you find an email, don't just message the basic email, or don't just call the basic number, call the numbers that you can find. So let's say a business has a CEO, he has some marketing manager, and then he has, let's say, a store owner or whatever. It doesn't matter. You have 3 key decision makers, and you can find their emails on LinkedIn, on the web, or anywhere. Now, all of a sudden, when you message one company, you're messaging to 1, 2, 3 emails. That already means that 3 people are potentially interested or potentially receiving your message. So if you message one company and you call them, and then you get a decent reply, because usually the person picking up the phone isn't in a particularly bad mood. They're usually pretty welcoming to calls if it's relevant and it's not spammy. And then you proceed to follow up with 3 to 4 relevant people in the company. Realistically, you can get like the 10%, as I mentioned. Yes, sometimes if your product is a little bit worse, or you're not really, you haven't really perfected the art of business yet, it's probably going to be a little lower. But even if it is 1 out of 50, that's probably going to take you 1 to 2 days, and you can make $500 to $1,000. Obviously, much more if you have a good product to sell and you're good at business. But realistically, for starters, this is the numbers you should be aiming for. Okay, now where do we go from here? Now you have these 2 customers. You've made $1,300, $1,350 to be exact. Now, how do you make this into more money? Well, if you do a very, very, very good job, that you're probably going to get referred. You can just be like, hey, I've noticed that you've really been enjoying the process. I hope you've liked our project, blah, blah, blah. And if they say, yes, I loved it, it was actually pretty good, exceeded my expectations, you're like, awesome. Do you know anyone in your close proximity, friends, family, colleagues, who would potentially be interested in such a service? And if you ask them directly and you've done a good service, they're probably going to recommend you to at least 1 to 2 people. Now, that doesn't really mean that you're going to get more business, but it means that from 2 clients, let's say both of them refer you to 2 people, all of a sudden you have 4 potential leads, which is much easier to close than if you're cold calling again, because if someone refers you, that already is proof of your product being good. If your product's already good and you're getting referred from someone who you like, you're much more likely to trust them. Therefore, a referral is always going to be better than, sorry, I'm just shaking my camera. A referral will always be better than cold calling, because you already overcame the trust issue and they already know who you are. They've seen what you can do, and it's much easier to sell. Now, if you guys would like, I'm more than happy to make a video based on how to get more referrals, how to improve your cold calling, cold email strategy. I'm more than happy to show you how I do different things like setting up your website, setting up a really good offer, how you can network at events and so on and so forth. For now, this should be just a video. I tried this new format where I tried to 101 some concepts in business. This time we were speaking about clients. If there's anything you're struggling with as a creative agency owner or an SMMA owner, feel free to leave a comment and I can address it in the future, and we can connect and make an awesome video explaining how you can overcome these issues. That's it. See you.